Hey guys! Today we'll be talking about running cadence, or the amount of steps you take per minute while running. Does increasing your running cadence make you a better runner? And if so, what is the ideal amount of steps per minute you should be taking while running? I did a little bit of research on that this week and also tried out a few different running cadences myself so that we could have that discussion. Let's get right into it. We know that there are only two ways to increase your speed. Either increase your amount of steps per minute, i.e. running cadence, or increase the length of your stride. Now back in 1984, running coach Jack Daniels noted that most Olympians ran at around 180 steps per minute. And since then, a lot of people have considered 180 to be the ideal running cadence. Is there any truth to that? Or is running cadence a lot more nuanced than we might think? Now, my fitness tracker doesn't keep track of how many steps per minute I'm running, so to conduct this experiment, I turned to Spotify. Spotify has a number of playlists with songs that are all around the same beats per minute. So this week, I chose 3 different playlists to run with. One had songs at 130 beats per minute, another had songs at 160 beats per minute, and the final list had ones at 175 beats per minute, which gets us close to that 180 ideal range. Let's take a look at how those runs went. This morning we'll be starting off with a Spotify playlist called Pop Warm Up 130 beats per minute. Obviously quite a bit less than the ideal 170 to 180 beats per minute, but I just want to test and see how my body feels running at 130 and see if it really is good for a warm-up. I ran about 0.4 miles at that 130 beats per minute pace, and honestly, it wasn't a good fit for me. It just felt like I was putting in a lot of effort to stay at that slow pace. So next I'm going to switch to the Runner's Club playlist at 160 beats per minute. I think that'll probably be a lot closer to what I do on average. All right, I can confirm that 160 beats per minute seems to be my normal pacing, and so that is definitely not 170 to 180, which is the recommended amount. So now I'm going to switch over to a new playlist called Lactic Acid at 175 beats per minute, and we'll see how my body feels with a lot quicker foot turnover. I came out of the gate a little too fast with the faster beats per minute. So now I'm focusing on slowing down my pace while at the same time keeping that 180 beats per minute. Okay, that's the end of my workout, all focused on beats per minute and how fast my stride can be. So let's head back in the house and just discuss how that went, how the different beats per minute felt, and how much they should vary based on the person involved. You may be taller, shorter, have a longer or shorter stride, and the amount of beats per minute that you should be doing is probably affected by that. Let's check out the research. Okay, so we already mentioned that the ideal amount of steps per minute was brought to us by running coach Jack Daniels. But before we all go out and change our running form, let's look at why running cadence is important and what it can help us with. I'll put links to a few articles that I read in the description below so that you can read more about it when we're through. Number 1, increasing your running cadence can lead to less injury and an improvement in your form because you're putting less of a load on your knees and hips. Number 2, increasing your running cadence helps you to land on your midfoot instead of your heel. When you're running on your midfoot, you're taking short, quick strides and your feet are basically below your center of gravity. When in contrast, you take a long stride and end up putting your weight on your heels, you're essentially braking and you're decreasing your forward momentum, which is not what we want when we're trying to run fast. There are definitely good reasons to increase your cadence, but if that's the case, then what is the ideal amount of steps per minute for everyone? PhD student Jeff Burns decided to study the 2016 100K championships and figure this out. He observed that runners in these championships were running a variety of different cadences. Some of these runners had a cadence of 155 beats per minute, while others had a cadence of 203. Now that's a wide amount of variation, and yet all of these individuals had ended up in the championships. So they must have been doing something right. Jeff wanted to figure out, of all the different data points he collected from people, what really made a difference in their cadence. He found that only two things really did. One was speed. If the same runner is doing a sprint versus a marathon, they're probably going to be running different speeds, and therefore will use different cadences. That's entirely appropriate. He also found that the other factor that affected cadence was height, because if you're taller, you'll naturally have a longer stride, and therefore you can get away with a slower cadence. He actually found that for every extra inch of height, it's usually associated with 3 beats per minute decrease in cadence. So if you have someone who's 5 foot 5 inches tall and another person who is 6 foot tall even, they would have about a 21 beats per minute difference in their cadence. And yet they were still all performing at the championship level. The conclusion of this study is that people really have a variety of different cadences, and having a higher cadence doesn't necessarily make you a better runner. So what does this mean for you? What should your running cadence be? Now, you know I can't answer that too specifically because people a lot more famous than I have tried to answer that question, and later we found out it's a lot more nuanced than we thought. However, I did find a great blog post by a guy named Jason Fitzgerald on strengthrunning.com. It was written back in February, and it talked about how your cadence will vary based on how fast you do your easy run of the week. Now, he recommends that if your pace for an easy run is slower than a 10-minute mile, then you should be running at least 160 steps per minute. If your pace, however, is faster than a 10-minute mile, then you should probably be running at a cadence of 170 steps per minute or more. He goes on to say if you're fast enough to have a 7-minute mile or better, then you probably want to do 180 beats per minute. I really like his recommendations, honestly. Since I find myself running faster than a 10-minute mile much of the time, I think I may want to increase my cadence a bit. I figured from my runs today that 160 beats per minute was generally the average I was comfortable with, but increasing to 175 steps per minute might be beneficial for my running style. There are a lot of aspects of running form that it's hard to figure out how to correct, but cadence doesn't have to be one of them. It's one thing that's fairly simple to count or keep track of by running with a playlist. Question of the day: do you know your running cadence, or are you inspired to find out? Hey guys, if you got value out of this video, be sure to press like down below and also subscribe for more tips and tools on how to improve your personal best every day. Bye guys.